This is Common Sense Compliance Podcast Series from EFG Companies. Each month, we break through the legalese surrounding compliance to deliver actionable information in an easy-to-understand language for immediate use in your efforts to maintain profitable compliance. I'm your host, Steve Ronau, Vice President of Compliance at EFG Companies, and at this time, I'd like to introduce to you our guest for today's podcast, Mr. Sean Peterson. Sean is the Senior Vice President of Legal and Government Affairs with the National Independent Automotive Dealer Association. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be here.
Today we'll be discussing changes going on with the FTC and the CFPB. Sean, to start things off, can you inform our listeners on when and why the FTC was established?
Sure thing. The FTC was formed in March 1915 is when it opened its doors, just celebrated its 103rd birthday. And they've got a pretty clear-cut mission statement where they work to protect consumers by preventing anti-competitive, deceptive, and unfair business practices. They work to enhance informed consumer choice and public understanding of what the competitive process looks like. And the one thing that I found very intriguing about their mission statement is they try to do this without being a burden on legitimate business activity.
Okay, Sean, what were the FTC's intended benefits for both consumers and businesses?
Well, on the consumer side, they work hard to protect consumers by stopping unfair, deceptive, or fraudulent practices in the marketplace. On the business side, they really work to make sure that there's a level playing field, make sure that competition is robust, that there's good price and selection and service. That also obviously benefits the consumers as well.
Absolutely. So what's going on now with the FTC? What's changing?
Well, the biggest change right now is a complete overhaul of the commissioners, the highest level. There are 5 commissioners at the FTC. 4 of them are brand new, have been in office for just a month or two. And the 5th one is on her way out the door. She's been appointed to a federal judgeship that's waiting Senate confirmation, and her replacement has already been approved, so as soon as this judgeship gets approved, then the new commissioner will take in. So we'll have 5 brand new commissioners here recently. And I think with that change, you'll see a focus for those commissioners that may be a little bit different than what has happened with the commission in the past. But I think we can expect to see the FTC continue to be vigilant in enforcing laws that impact the automotive space.
So how do you see all these new people and the impact on the FTC? How do you expect the FTC to move forward?
I think we can expect to see some robust enforcement actions when there is, in fact, an issue that needs to be taken care of. I think we'll see a focus on making sure that markets are competitive, that this unfair, deceptive conduct is not there. I think we can expect to see the FTC look for ways to and new cases to bring that maybe haven't been brought before or haven't been a focus on the past. The FTC is not going to go away, and I think they'll continue to reinforce their position in the regulatory framework.
You said they're looking at things they haven't looked before. Can you give me an example of what you think they're going to look more at? Or
I think one of the things that we've seen with the FTC in looking at new issues is the recent case involving an automotive group on the West Coast called Tate Auto. This is the first case that the FTC has brought that deals with an automotive dealer falsifying credit applications. So the allegations that's made against this dealer group include falsifying consumers' monthly income, falsifying their down payments on the financing applications, things that they would submit to the third-party finance companies for approval. They inflated numbers, making it appear that consumers had more income than they really did. One of the other allegations is that they prevented the consumers from reviewing those documents before they were transmitted to the finance company. On top of that, one of the concerning things that the FTC alleges in this suit is that a lot of those victims, alleged victims, are members of the Navajo Nation, minorities, protected class sort of thing.
Okay, so that's definitely something new for the FTC, and I've heard about the Tate Automotive Group example. Is there another example of some new things the FTC is looking at?
Well, the FTC in January, the updated used car rule took effect. And here in the last couple of months, the FTC has been actively engaged in checking compliance with that rule. They recently announced a sweep of 94 dealerships across 20 cities in California, Florida, Illinois, New York, Ohio, Texas, and Washington to make sure that dealers were compliant with that new rule. One of the things that they did is partnered with 12 local law enforcement agencies, including state attorneys general and state DMVs, to make sure that dealers were doing the right thing. And quite frankly, some of the results of that are a little bit troubling. They found that almost half of the dealerships that they looked at didn't have the buyer's guide either on the car or completed correctly. So that's a pretty significant number for something that, quite frankly, is basic blocking and tackling.
Yes, I would agree. And those are two very big changes as far as how the FTC is approaching the marketplace. What actions, you said that attorney generals were getting involved. What actions can you expect from attorney generals to be taking as they get more active involved?
So one of the things that has happened here recently is the CFPB has really asked the state attorneys general to ramp up and become more engaged in things that the CFPB was either doing or at least perceived to have been doing. So several state attorneys general offices, I'll give you a couple of examples in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, to be two, have formed mini CFPB units and really starting to look at ways where they can step into shoes where the CFPB is perceived, or through Mulvaney's direct quotes, perceived to be, stepping back a little bit. So we can expect, I think, AGs to be much more aggressive in enforcing some of these dealer compliance and finance company related things.
So the FTC is now looking at things they never have before. Attorney generals are getting more involved, and we have new directions going on. And what would be your biggest piece of advice for dealers moving forward as this shifting compliance atmosphere?
I think dealers need to be very cognizant of who the sheriffs are in town. I think there was a perception that it was just the federal government, the CFPB, for so long that perhaps they neglected the state AG's role. I think they need to understand that everybody's going to be looking, the state AG is going to be looking, the federal government's going to be looking, and compliance absolutely has to continue to be a forefront. Just because there's been a change in presidential administrations and a perception that perhaps the rules may be relaxed a little bit, that's not the case. They have to be vigilant in making sure they're compliant.
Sean, that's a great piece of advice. And for my final tip, I'd say to use the Tate auto example. Go ahead and discuss it with your sales teams and either confirm or reset your expectations on how you want business to be done in your store. I'm confident none of you want this happening in your store, and I'm sure none of you want this kind of publicity either. So thank you, Sean, and thanks to you for listening to our show. If you like what you heard, please rate us in Google Play or iTunes Store, and be sure to subscribe to hear more common sense compliance. For more information on these topics and more, visit efgintelligence.com.